Greetings and welcome to another amazing, exciting episode of the Limitless Mind Podcast. We are your hosts, Travis Magus and
Apollo Soul. So happy to have you guys back for another episode.
Absolutely. This is one of the most fulfilling aspects of social media, being able to have conversations like this, touching on so many different topics. In my study of magic and spirituality these past several years, one thing I find to be pretty consistent is that success isn't guaranteed, right? Just because you buy a magic book on Amazon or you pick up a pack of tarot cards, it doesn't mean that you're going to know what you're doing. It doesn't mean that you'll ever have success. But what it does mean is that you have an opportunity to experience different reflections of life in the materials that you've purchased, whether that's crystals, tarot cards, candles, whatever. But aside from these objects, and aside from the information that you glean from these books, what's most important overall is that you begin to develop a certain psychic acuity, a certain psychic sensitivity, because without that, you're not going to progress very far at all.
I would agree with that. All these things like you mentioned, so crystals, tarot, whatever, they're kind of like a mirror. So they're an extension of you, and they're utilized, in my opinion, the best when you kind of use them as a tracker or some sort of measurement to see where you're at your current level. So what I mean by that is the traditional way that the vast majority of people see, for example, say tarot cards or divination, is the kind of end all be all. You see all these memes about girls doing these spreads and be like, does he love me? And then they pull the devil, the tower, whatever, and they keep doing it over and over again to get a different spread, thinking it's the end all be all. But we know that energy is always changing, right? It can never be destroyed, it can never be created, it already is. It's an influx. So these things, just exactly as your outer reality, your physical environment, is a measurement to see where your awareness is at and your focus is at. These tools are the same, except that you can utilize them in a much more precise way to also not only be aware of where your mentality is at, but to also develop your mentality and then thus boost your psychic abilities.
So awareness is major key, and we need awareness to be able to boost your psychic abilities, because how else will you know that you're actually making progress? And I think that's another big thing, whether it's spirituality or anything that you're trying to learn how to do, if you don't have a solid way of knowing what progress looks like and knowing what the milestones are on the path, then you could easily be led into deception, right? Like you can easily tell yourself that you're way further ahead than you actually are.
Yeah, it's humbling.
Yeah, right. And
it's a humble tracker.
And that's another wonderful part of this journey is, we're naturally going to have these thoughts that we're so far advanced and we're so great, and then we're smacked with the reality of it. And then we have two choices, really. One choice is to actually be humbled, pick yourself up, and then continue. The other choice is to reject that, deny that, and to continue the illusion, the fantasy.
I mean, that's the thing, though. Like you mentioned, the ego and how great you are, but like reality is going to humble you anyway, because you can say that all you want, but if your outer reality isn't matching that, then, you definitely don't actually believe that or think that.
Yes. Great quote from the Bible that says, pride cometh before a fall. And regardless if you're a Christian or not, you're going to find that rings true across the board. Usually before someone falls from grace, it's preceded by a certain era of the individual feeling like they are beyond consequence, beyond reproach, beyond judgment.
Exactly like the tarot card.
There we go. Exactly like the tower card.
I'm pretty sure it's the traditional depiction is like a king and a queen falling down, or at least like very elite rich people. So I mean that says it all, really.
Yeah, I have it right in front of me. It's traditionally a king and a peasant, meaning anybody can get touched.
Damn, nobody's safe.
Right. And you find that also when you look at the death card, right? You'll see death and his majestic glory riding through the countryside, and all these people on the ground begging, right? You got a pope here. You got a pope, you got a king, you got, a child, a basic ass woman. Like, everybody's like, please spare me. No, everyone's time comes.
People are so afraid of that card and like death in general, but it doesn't. I mean, first of all, it doesn't always have to mean death. Like, it's literally new beginnings, and you don't die anyway. But because again, we're so wrapped up in the senses and this physical reality, and we consciously, on our usual level, because we don't understand what death is, we can't really comprehend it. It's scary, and that's why everyone's so afraid of the card. But even if you look at it like clearly and you depict the symbolism at the very back, at least in the traditional one, there's a sun rising. It's a new day, it's a new dawn, it's a new era. So I mean, cycles, it's inevitable. It's in the Kabbalion, right? Law of rhythm. Things are going to come up and come down. They're going to end and they're going to begin, and it's going to be a continuous cycle. But it doesn't always have to be so scary and so like detrimental. It's literally what kind of meaning you put onto the symbolism anyway. Because the symbolism in these cards, regardless, it's universal. Like, it speaks to the universal collective consciousness. But it's not the end all be all, because at the end of the day we still all have different beliefs, different views, different mentalities. So it's important to like not get so hung up on. It's always the negative as well, isn't it? Like, our brains are automatically drawn to thinking the worst. Absolutely. Like, oh no, I've drawn a death card, like that means I'm gonna die or something. It's like, no, it's probably new beginnings.
Right. I mean, one of our favorite books, Cashvertising by Drew Eric Whitman, talks about how fear is the number one way of convincing people to buy your product or to sign up for your thing.
That man that wrote Cashvertising, I remember I was studying that book like 2 years ago, and the way he gave a pizza advert as an example, and the way he described that damn pizza. I'm not usually a sucker for ads, because like I like to study these things and pick them apart and be like, yeah, I know what tactics you're pulling. But like, after I read the way he described that pizza, like that stuffed cheesy crust, that the fresh dough, the fresh toppings, the stretchy cheese,
don't do it.
I went and got a pizza. It was so good, and that's how you know that the author puts his money where his mouth at. Like, he knows what he's doing.
Right. So I was so happy to buy his new book yesterday. And another thing I wanted to point out, you were talking about on the death card, how even though, we've got this ending of a cycle, if you look in the background, you've got this sun rising. And it isn't just a sun rising. It's a sun rising between two distinctive pillars. And if you shuffle through and you find the moon card, you'll see it's those exact two pillars that the sun is rising.
Yeah.
One of the cool things about the tarot is that you'll find that there's recurring images and recurring themes. So in a way, if you take what the moon card represents, right, we're talking about illusion, talking about deception, but also we're talking about a journey of evolution, of progress. That's what the moon card represents. So why would that be on the death card? Because death doesn't mean end. It means transition into the next. Yeah, I read this again a while ago. I think that it's actually the moon card that usually represents physical death. And it's funny because like about 3 years ago, like when I had a death in the family, and I was just like getting into tarot again and messing around with the spread. Like, the person wasn't dead yet, but they were in critical condition, and my family was like, oh, do a spread. So I was like, okay, cool. And one of the cards that came up was the moon. And the person that was in critical condition was a Scorpio. And in the moon card, and I think it's linked to Cancer, but it's like a crayfish or a lobster. I don't know what the hell it is, but it's like coming out of the pool of water and going between like the two pillars. And that was kind of like
a representation. Like I didn't take it at the time as that meaning, but like looking back on it, that card then symbolized, in that period of time with that specific energy, that there is that strong possibility that that person is going to cross over and take that journey, because the moon as well is also Yesod, right? So it's between the physical plane and the etheric and astral, and that's obviously where you're going to go after you pass on. That's like the first step. So it's quite interesting how accurate it can be sometimes, especially when you're tapped in, and you're like essentially manipulating the energy so you can read it.
Right. Yeah.
It's like Morse code, but like energy.
That's the crucial part of this whole thing, because we're looking at images, we're looking at pictures, and I think it would be easy to believe, okay, well, maybe these cards in themselves are magical, maybe these pictures are magical. But the thing is, you mentioned a key phrase earlier, that the collective unconscious, right? The collective, our collective archetypes, our collective memory.
Mm-hmm.
These tarot decks, at least the ones that are worth their salt, these images are pulled from that collective unconscious, which means that regardless of who you are or what culture you've come up in, when you see these images, it's going to strike certain types of emotions or certain types of thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
And being able to receive these impressions and being able to decipher them in your current modern language is the key to success when it comes to psychic development with tools like the tarot.
Right. The whole topic of the collective unconscious is actually so interesting as well, because I remember when I first heard of it, I was kind of thinking about it from a current in the now point of view. What I mean is say because we're all connected, we're all the same thing in just a different physical form, that you can manipulate others in a certain way. That's how you get thought transmissions, or when you think of something, the other person's like, oh my god, I thought of that too. But it goes deeper in that, in a sense. It's and it's kind of cool to zoom out and think about it. Whatever happened millennia ago, eons ago, years ago, it even though we didn't necessarily experience that in this flesh, because the consciousness is unified, it's left an imprint in the energy. It's the same as you look at cats, right? I can go right now and buy a kitten, and I can put it in a shallow tub of water, and even though that kitten has never come into contact with water before, it'll still freak the hell out and think that I'm trying to drown it or something. So it's some sort of universal consciousness, in the sense of, it's the same as generational trauma, right? People keep going on about generational trauma and whatever happened. It's what has happened. I don't want to say in the past, because time's not necessarily linear, but whatever the consciousness has experienced, because we're all connected, even if we didn't have a direct experience with it in the now, we can still feel its lasting effects. It's the same as, remember ages ago we spoke about, I don't know if it was cognitive dissonance, but it's I think I shared a post with you from Tumblr years and years ago. It was this concept of how if you look at a image of I think it was in that specific example, it was a very ghostly pale woman with blackout eyes and sharp teeth and pointy ears. And it was something about most of the time when you look at an image like that, it will invoke some sort of primordial fear in you. And the question was why do we fear this? Did we have some sort of contact with this particular creature in the past that we don't necessarily remember, but that that experience has left a mark in our universal consciousness?
Yeah, the same way if most people have this certain reaction to seeing a spider, or
exactly,
certain types of animals, insects. Did we have some type of collective experience deep in history?
Yeah, that's been covered up and we don't know about. The spiders are so feared, right? It's probably one of the number one fears that the vast majority of people have.
And what else? Next to spiders, what else?
Snakes, rats, the dark. I think those are the most common ones. I can't really think of anything else. But I remember even when I was a kid, I didn't actually have a fear of spiders. I actually found them kind of cool. But my mom was so deathly afraid of them that she then installed that fear into me. It's just so weird how that works.
Genetic. And not even genetic. There's a level of physicality to our being, and there's also a level of energy to our being. There's also a level of mind to our being. And when we talk about the collective unconscious, what we're talking about is all of those levels, right? Because DNA and heredity. That's the word.
Hereditary.
That's passed down physically, and that's memory. So your DNA isn't just your parents. I mean, obviously, it's everyone who survived and existed since day one, right? If you believe in Adam and Eve, right, you still got the genetics from these individuals. Well, it also happens on the emotional level. We inherit emotional reactions and beliefs. We inherit thought patterns. So you take all these things, and you take the higher level of spirit as well, karma, right? These repeating patterns that we perform in our lives. All of this stuff can be stored, so to speak, in a place we call the collective unconscious. And it isn't just for you individually or your family, it's for the entire human race. The same way that cats have this fear of water, like you mentioned, etc., etc.
Yeah, it's like also a trippy way to think about it is you were like already in your grandmother, like before your mother was even born.
You were already in your grandmother before your mother was born. Now, how does this connect with psychic ability and developing psychic ability? I would most certainly say that when we talk about developing psychic ability, which is what you should be doing if you're studying these books and doing your rituals, right? Because it's not just about collecting data from books, and it's not just about trying spells from the internet. You should begin to develop psychic ability with this work. Now, how does this connect with the collective unconscious and with memory? Well, when we speak of telekinesis, ESP, clairvoyance, all these types of psychic abilities, what you're actually doing is reading that medium of the collective unconscious, right? If we talk about clairvoyance, what are you looking at? You're looking at the collective unconscious. When you're talking about ESP, what are you reading? You're reading through the collective unconscious. Telepathy. The fact that we have the possibility to do these things, we owe directly to the collective unconscious. The same way you're in tune with somebody that you really love, and if they're feeling down, you can feel that even without being around them. You can get a sense that something has changed. What is it that you're reading?
It's really cool as well because, you know, it kind of sounds like woo-woo, but these things are very real, and you know they're real not only because, you know, creation is finished and every possibility is already done and it exists, but also when you zoom out and you look at the physical manifestations, they're a direct representation of these seeds. So we think about clairvoyance and, you know, telepathic messages. The way we communicate on social media is exactly that, isn't it? Like, most of us don't even utter a word to each other. We're just typing and we're communicating directly via our thoughts. And there's, you know, it's a reason why it's also called the Ethernet, the ether.
And I don't know if they knew what it would become, you know, back when they were setting this thing up, when the internet was in its baby stages. I don't know if they knew what it would become. There's a chance that they did. There's also a high chance that they didn't. But
it's literally a physical representation of the collective unconscious. Especially you go on Instagram, right? And the amount of animalistic like shit on there is crazy. Like, it is wild on there. But that is also a direct representation and reflection of the universal collective unconscious.
Yes, Instagram, Facebook, Pornhub, RedHub, XTube, XHamster, all this stuff is.
I was waiting for XHamster.
Xvideos. All this is a reflection.
Oh shit! It's listing all the porn websites.
That's what the kids are talking about. I don't know anything about that.
He's not subscribed.
And that's what's really cool. Like, even these things that we don't speak out loud, or we only share with a few people, we get a sense of connectivity when we're able to see it expressed by other people. And it's not limited to porn, just like with art, right? Art or fashion or music or these different things. When we see someone else expressing certain feelings that we've had inside, we automatically start to have this sense of connectivity. This is why we like what we like.
Just as a side note, we did actually develop some exercises to develop your psychic ability in the membership. I don't know how many people actually check that section out, because I guess it's not as exciting when you have to put those things into practice. It requires discipline and consistency. But there are a few things in the Magus Academy module already set up to begin to expand your awareness and psychic abilities.
Absolutely. So if you are a member of the Magus Society membership, go back in and check out the Magus Academy modules. And if you're not a member, now would be a perfect time, because we've just started to unleash our tarot study, our tarot initiation, where we break down every card, and not just what these cards mean, but how you can use them to hone your psychic ability. So check that out in the link below in the description to this video.
Yeah, you gotta utilize that stuff. It's the same as a gym membership. You can't just pay for it and expect to get abs. You have to actually do the work to see the results.
Right. I mean, you can pay for it, just forget about it. I'm not gonna really complain, but I would suggest, you came here for a reason. Let's go ahead and maximize that reason.
And it's also really great for us to get really positive messages from the work that we put out in there, and people, reaching out and saying, hey, this really helped us and this is great, and you've made us think of this, and we've not even been aware of that point before. So seeing the members utilize the information and grow and have such great positive feedback is really, really touching, and it makes what we do even more special and even more worth it, because we don't do this for us, we do this for you guys.
Right. Psychic ability, tuning, honing, mastering your connection to the collective unconscious. And when we talk about these tarot cards, it's not, once again, it's not that these cards or those crystals are inherently special, but they do serve as symbols that you can utilize to access parts of the collective unconscious. What I want to say here, based on everything else that I said, is that what we call psychic ability is nothing more than you working with the collective unconscious. We call it psychic ability because of Hollywood and TV, but what is actually happening is you are tuning in and tapping into the collective unconscious.
It's a skill we already possess as well. We just have to dust it off, because again, we're so wrapped up in our senses, we don't really utilize that aspect anymore, but we know it's true. I'm sure a lot of people listening to this right now had many moments where they thought of something and then somebody else mirrored it, straight away, or you were singing a song in your head and you walk somewhere and you hear that song play.
Man.
It's within us. We already have that ability, that power. It's not something, woo-woo that only certain people can access as we're usually taught. We already all have that gift. It's just, the same as if you have an exercise bike at home and you put all your clothes on it and never use it for its purpose, you're not actually going to get that functionality. So it's about reclaiming your power, expressing enough self-love for the act of discipline, because you know that you deserve this, you know that this is your birthright. It's your inherent gift that you already have, just as how you're able to talk and walk and see, and you're utilizing this gift to make your life better, because you can and because you deserve to. It also upgrades your readings. In tarot, for example, if you don't really have a well-developed psychic ability, and you're just visually jumping with all these conclusions of all the symbols that you're seeing, you're not going to get a clear message, and then you're going to feel fumbled and confused as to, what the hell to do. And especially if you don't keep your ego in check and you're already jumping to the worst and most negative conclusions because you pulled out the devil card or you got the tower, and oh my god, life's about to go tits up, you're then gonna fumble your life up even more, because now that's in your awareness, in your focus, and your reality is gonna match that. So it's important that when you are utilizing these tools, you're utilizing them to make your life better and to not make it worse to your detriment.
Yeah, and seeing that making your life worse to your detriment, that has everything to do with unhealed trauma and unsolved mental frameworks, right? Faulty mental frameworks. Shoot, since we're talking about that, it'd be a good idea to make sure that you get some shadow work under your belt. I know you guys have heard of that phrase. Many of you have taken our shadow work mastery program, or even our manifestation action plan, where we give practical tips on how to do these things. Like, I've said this before in my videos, you don't have to suffer. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to suffer. There are tools, there's techniques, there's all kinds of things available that can help you to straighten out your perspective, right? And we have done this shadow work course, as well as a manifestation action plan that teaches you pretty much how to fix your thoughts so you don't continue to self-sabotage. But in any case, once you do get out of that rut of automatically jumping to the negative, what you're going to realize is that when you do your tarot readings, or whatever medium of divination you choose, you'll actually see where you've been putting yourself in the way, right? Because if these cards are symbols that are open to interpretation and you have a negative mindset, what you're going to do is you're going to automatically, by routine, come up with these negative interpretations. Like what Apollo said, you're going to see the death card and think, oh, that means death. Devil card, oh, that means the devil's out to get me. That's you putting yourself in the way of what the actual transmission is. See, to have a deck of 78 cards and not have some cards that might identify struggle and conflict, it would be false. It wouldn't be something reliable, right? Because if these 78 cards represent the entirety of the human experience, there has to be some symbols that represent struggle, strife, conflict, something that needs to be overcome. But that doesn't mean that you failed, that everything's going to shit, going to hell, or as Apollo Soul said, it doesn't mean that everything's going tits up.
New saying unlocked.
Yes.
The thing is, so even if it is going tits up and you're going through hell, there's that famous Winston Churchill quote, if you're going through hell, keep going, because that just might mean that for you specifically, unless your mindset is funky and you're thinking all kinds of whack things, that may be just the quickest route to whatever it is that you actually really want. So sometimes things fall apart because that's just the quickest way to get you what you need. But a lot of stuff right now, again, especially social media, whatever, it's become all very new age, manifestations becoming all trendy and hip, and man, some of the messages that they say about that, I'm listening to some of the girls and they're like, girl boss, and just trust the universe and she's got your back, and if she didn't give you this, then it means it's not meant for you. And I'm listening to this shit and I'm like, excuse me, does that just not sound like religion under a new quirky name? Oh, the universe, she thinks that that's not good for you, so she'll give you something else. Just keep on waiting. What? that's the same premise, but it's the same with tarot as well. For the people that actually want to practice occultism and they take these things seriously, often when you go into tarot, because again, your knowledge may be limited, your experience might be limited, you might not have developed your psychic abilities enough, you can be getting these messages that you perceive in a negative way, and you're setting yourself up for failure. And then if you keep getting all these scary looking cards, you're going to quit tarot altogether. But you don't have to, because it's a useful tool. So that's what we really want to teach in the membership, in terms of how to utilize these things correctly. Because tarot, I don't know, I feel like it kind of gets a bad rep these days. If you're not thinking of the old-fashioned creepy ladies reading your fortune. Do you remember that girl I sent you? And she kept doing like the same messages over and over again on those like pick a card YouTube videos, and then we looked at her shop, and she was selling junk.
Man.
She was literally selling junk to people for like 20-30 pounds, and being like, hey, like this feather is gonna protect you from the evil eye. And every YouTube video, I can't remember what her freaking name was, but every YouTube video was like, your ex is thinking about you and he's gonna come back, and I've drawn the King of Pentacles, and that means that he's on his way back to you. And it was the same shit over and over, and you could tell that she would record like multiple videos in one day because she was wearing the same damn outfit.
Didn't matter what
she
pulled.
To get those YouTube likes. Yeah, and the message didn't even add up because the symbolism, like, it's not lining up, and you know that she was doing it on purpose to say that emotional shit so people would get targeted and be like, yeah, you know what, yeah, this resonates with me because my ex just left me. Yeah, this resonates with me because this and this happened. Let me go on your shop and buy that pink feather for £30 because that's going to bring him back. So it's getting a bad rep, and like it's not the way to use it. It's not the way to utilize it effectively, especially for your growth. Don't let these other people scam you, because like that sucks, and they sure as hell don't know what they're doing. And we really just kind of want to get the most out of tarot, because a lot of people are not utilizing it correctly, and it's becoming a lost art of what it's truly capable of. Again, the cards aren't magical in their own sense, but when you use it together with your mind, with your focus, with your discipline correctly, you can achieve so much.
And as has been said in many of the high level books that I read, when it concerns tarot, divination is only a minor fraction of what these cards are actually supposed to be used for. Divination is only a fraction, a small percentage, right? It's not about predicting the future or fortune telling. That's something it can do on the side, but really these cards are representatives of a very deep science. And for me to go back just a little bit, we were talking about this girl doing these readings on that YouTube channel. When Apollo says that she was selling junk on her website, I need you to understand, she was actually selling junk, like
literal junk,
hair ties and shit, rubber bands and screws.
Yeah, or she would draw like a star on a piece of paper and like sell it for like £10 and be like, this is gonna protect you and cleanse you. I mean, like, girl, what?
I mean, you know what I'm saying.
Like, I get it.
Get your hustle.
Yeah,
do what you gotta do. But
yeah, but damn, that's embarrassing. Like, at least provide a quality product,
Right.
Like,
right.
But this is also kind of reflecting on what we're saying, because I'm sure that a few people have brought that, and it worked for them because they believed in it. So like, you can work with a turd. You can take a turd and like do a little spell over it. If you believe in it enough, it's gonna become magical, quote unquote, and give you what you want. Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely
wild though.
Yeah, just like we're talking about how these cards are not inherently magic. So what that really is saying is that you can work with anything, even crusty hair ties that she probably got snot all over, or whatever, anything, because the magic is not in the stuff. The magic is in you. But there's a lot of people in this world who are having a hard time believing that. So they trust these objects that other people tell them can do what they say it does.
Yeah. And utilizing the tarot, I mean, like, do what you want, but I feel like utilizing it just for divination is dumb anyway, because again, you're giving away your power. When you go into tarot and you ask it a question like, oh, what's my future gonna be like, or is this gonna happen? It's just gonna give you an answer that is gonna be modeled from your perception, or it's gonna be like a direct measurement of the energy around your situation and your mindset right now. But going into it and trying to shuffle these cards to get like a future reading, like, I think it's dumb, because you yourself create your future. Like, you don't have to ask cards to tell you what your life is going to be. You should ask yourself that question in terms of what it is that you want, what you want to achieve, believe that you're capable of doing it, and then get to work and actually taking actionable steps to do it. And that's how you graft your future, not through like looking at the stars or reading your birth chart and like astrology is like another thing that I've got like a gripe with now, because like all these things, like all these systems are so limiting, and we start putting them into these like mystical woo categories again because of the collective unconscious. But it's just crazy because you're just, again, especially if you come from a religious background, you're trading away like your power from a monotheistic god to like the universe apparently deciding whether or not something's right for you, your planetary alignment and your birth chart deciding how your life's gonna go. Like it's bullshit. So there's many more better effective ways to utilize these forms of magical tools, if you will. Like a few years ago, again, when I was dipping in the tarot, I would meditate on the major arcana, and I had like some really, really cool experiences. For example, like I would take the Empress card and relax. But I'd go into meditation and imagine myself walking into the card and interacting with the character or characters depicted on the image, with the environment, and seeing what I got. So I did that with a few of the major arcana, and it was a really cool experience. It brought some things to light to me, and it was way more beneficial and useful than me, for example, sitting there and shuffling cards and being like, oh my god, am I gonna end up with this man? Am I gonna get this promotion? What's gonna happen?
Endless loops. I don't know what it is that makes it so difficult for us to accept the fact that we are in control of our destiny. We are in control of our lives and where things are headed. I mean, I guess I can.
It's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary. You have to take responsibility, man.
Right. I guess I can.
Can't blame anyone when it goes wrong.
Right. That's the big thing. We're scared of when things go wrong because then we can't offload it onto somebody else.
Yeah.
And what you were talking about as far as like, we go from the church and thinking about God and Muhammad and Jesus and all that other stuff. And now we transition to the universe and, Mercury retrograde.
Yeah.
It's what we call religiosity, right? You carry that same religious mindset and you just swap out the thing that you're worshiping. That's not evolution. You're doing the same thing. You just change the names of it.
To add to that, to religion, I'm pretty sure in the Quran they said that when you, don't quote me directly on this, but pretty sure that when you die and you go to heaven, a man gets 72 wives. There's that number again, 72.
Virgins too.
72 angels, 72 virgins, 72 demons. It's all connected.
And we could say 72 tarot cards if you remove the 4 aces. I say the aces because the aces represent the direct astral influence that moves the physical plane. For example, like if you wanted, say, a wealth ritual with money, then that Ace of Pentacles is that astral force that moves that type of energy. So those 4 ace cards, they represent the Akash element. So if we were to take those out, then there would be 72. I think my math is off a bit. 78 tarot cards. 6, 7, 6. In any case.
We'll get back to you on that one.
Yeah.
The math ain't mathing right now.
So we mentioned that divination is only a fragment of what tarot is capable of. Even though that's the mainstream and everyone thinks of tarot and fortune telling and getting your future read and all that other stuff. And it works for that. It absolutely does, especially the more that you understand yourself. Tarot is more than just a divination tool. Like I mentioned, the Golden Dawn texts and some of the others talk about how divination is a fragment of what tarot is actually used for. So what's the rest? What is the rest? Tarot can be seen as the original tool for shadow working. Tarot is what has been used for path working to make the process of introspection, self-understanding, know thyself, it's been a tool to make these things and to facilitate that process in a much easier fashion. Because I mentioned before, all 78 cards represent a different slice of existence. A different slice of existence that every human being will experience to some degree. The ancients called it the Book T. And when I say the ancients in this case, I'm talking about the people from the Rosicrucians and the Golden Dawn Society, etc. They called the tarot the Book T. And in describing it as a book, it was thought of as each card representing a page of life. So to really understand the symbolism behind these cards is also to understand the symbolism behind the life that you're living. Each card doesn't have a concrete, solid meaning, but it has a general meaning that can be applied to your individual life. So these cards are timeless. It doesn't matter what year you live in. The energies that are represented by these images apply to every single person who's ever lived and will ever die.
Beautifully said. I think it's also beneficial to see them not as like a separate tool or maybe just pieces of card, but as a extension of you. Because essentially these images, these symbols, they're all archetypes. So it's the universal collective consciousness broken down into smaller fragments for us to be able to interact, categorize, process, and filter that information, because it's a vast amount of data, right? And the mind is definitely not going to comprehend the English language or regular words. It needs those pictorial images. So a good tool, as I mentioned, is to look at those cards and to interact with them. Imagine entering the images, getting to know them on a personal level and seeing them as different types of you, different variations of you. Like you can take the Magician card, the first card in the Major Arcana, and instead of seeing it as a man over a table, see it as you. What comes to mind? What messages are you going to receive? Because everything is you. It's all a extension, a mirror of yourself. And using the tarot that way and getting to know yourself on a much deeper, more spiritual level is way more beneficial than, again, just asking at what your future is going to hold. Because then you're putting yourself into a position of power where you know that you're going to control your own future, and you know that you have the tools, the ability to do that. You're not relying on external things outside of yourself to give you that permission to live the life you want, or to even give you that sliver of hope. You don't need hope, you need faith, concrete faith in your own abilities to know that you're fully capable of doing that, and you already have the seeds and that basic power within you to do that.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful. Y'all might want to run that back and listen to that part again. You mentioned about looking at the Magician card and seeing yourself. Like, I never realized until you just said that. Like, I do that by default. When I see that card, I see myself. And some of these other cards, I see myself automatically because I know that that's so important.
That's the thing again, like with your physical environment, looking around it now, like observing your circumstances, whatever situations you're in, relationships, your financial status, it's a very accurate and direct reflection of you internally as a being. Like everything reflects you perfectly down to a T. And like kind of just detaching, taking away your emotions, and not a lot of us think like, oh, life is shit, and we don't have this and this and that, and I wish I had that. But like detaching from those feelings and zooming out, you can start to piece together the correlation and the direct link between where your awareness and your focus lies on a consistent basis, because that is your beliefs. Beliefs is literally just consistent observation. And if you go back into quantum physics, what you're observing, you're collapsing that wave and you're bringing that into your reality. So there is always going to be a direct link, and your physical environment is a direct measure of your awareness. Don't use it as like, first of all, like a thing like that's outside of your control, that, this has happened, and I can't achieve this because the government, takes all my money, or I was cursed when I was a kid. Like, I heard that as well. I heard that, like, I can't do this because I was cursed as a kid, and that's why my life's been shit ever since. It's like, what? But yeah, instead of, using it as a scapegoat like we do with the devil, God or whatever, see it as a direct tool to measure where your awareness is at, and then things that you don't like, you won't be changing them in the mirror, right? Because the reality is just a mirror. When you go look into a reflection in the mirror to see yourself, if you don't like what you see, you're not going to smash the mirror, or you're not going to draw on the mirror. If my hair is unbrushed and unkempt, and I want to change that, I'm going to brush my hair. I'm not going to try and do it on my reflection. So like, why the hell are you messing around with your physical reality? Use that and the tarot cards as well as as a tool to measure where your focus is at. And once you change your focus, things start falling into place. Focus on what you want, not on what you don't want. That's our default base. We're always raised from the get-go. We're like, save for the future, because it's inevitable that something's gonna go bad, and you're gonna have a rainy day, and you gotta do this and this and this because this is probably gonna happen. Or how many times do we have I don't know if your parents ever did this. Mine did. They would never put money in a bank. They would hide it in the house somewhere, and then the money would lose its value because of inflation, but they didn't understand that. They were afraid, right? So it's always the worst case scenario. The smarter move would have been to put it into a bank with a good savings account, a good percentage to increase your money to try and stabilize the value of it as inflation goes up. But we're always thinking about the worst. So stop that. You're only sabotaging yourself.
Right. Only sabotaging yourself.
There's no one else to sabotage. Only you.
Yeah, it's all about the accountability. And I know, being a young person, being inexperienced, or even being hurt in the past, the way we see God often has to do with how we see our parents or how we see authority. And if we find ourselves blaming an outside thing for our internal issues, it's usually due to some unresolved emotional trauma. Whether we blame the devil, or we blame a mental issue or an emotional issue or something that happened to us as we're young, I'm not saying that these things didn't happen to you, and I'm not saying that they're not valid. They are valid, and they did happen to you. And in addition to that, today is now. Today is now, and it's a new day. And if you want better for yourself, you've got to act on that. You cannot continue blaming these outside things if what you want is progress. If you don't want progress, continue blaming these things and using those excuses as to why you don't get better. You can do that. You have the free will to do that. But if you want better, you got to reach for better. You got to actively reach for better. And when we talk about these tarot cards and we talked about developing psychic ability, this is not in order to find justification for your shortcomings. No, this is so that you can truly see the expansive being that you are, the fact that you are not merely your name and your body and your job. You're something much greater. And the only way that you're going to see that is if you start to developing your psychic ability. Now, you can continue to blame the world for your pain, but I'm telling you, you will get nowhere doing that. You're going to stay in the same spot for the rest of your life if that's what you choose to do. But if you get yourself up and begin to take ownership of what happens next, you'll find that you'll start developing in areas that you probably didn't even know existed.
Exactly. And have enough resilience and self-confidence and to keep going despite what everybody else and everything else is telling you. Yesterday, I had somebody tell me, we don't live life how we want to, we live life how we can. And I listened to that and I was like, girl, you do you, but I am not gonna do that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna take back control of my, like, first of all, these people, they would just give anything to project, because cognitive bias, they need that confirmation in, victim mentality. Well, I was just unfortunate in life, and that's just the hand that God gave me, refusing to take any responsibility. But like, use that if anybody tries to limit you in any way, whether that's your friends, family, whatever. First of all, like, if you can, get rid of them, like, yeet them out of your life, because they're only going to bring you down. They'll wear you away, like the sea erodes the rocks all the time on the beaches. Or learn to literally just drown out that noise.
Yeah.
Because if you let them get into your head, they will bring you down with them, and then you're going to end up living their shitty life too. So when I heard that statement yesterday, I was like, you know what? I'm not that kind of person that, goes out of the way to prove people wrong, because I don't care what people think or what people do. Like, I only care about raising myself up and becoming the best version of me that I can be. But because you try to limit me now, I'm not going to go out of my way to work on myself to get to the level that I want. And that's the mentality that a lot of people need to cultivate. Like, sure, like, I slip and I waver sometimes. We always have to pick ourselves up back with discipline. Otherwise, we will end up on the same crappy level as these other people who are living the most miserable, loser lives, complaining, victimizing, blaming everyone, not taking any accountability for their actions or their role and their responsibility, the way that their life has panned out. And the cycle's just going to continue. You think that when you die, you're going to come back as like a millionaire? Like, hell no, you're going to come back with the same conditions, and you're going to keep doing it over and over and over again until you learn your lesson and you learn how to get past that. Ooh. So if you're not motivated to even have a better life now, if you want to keep repeating the same cycle over and over again and differently, like, you're not going to remember consciously anyway, but it's still going to suck. So you may as well do something now to set yourself up for your future life if you don't even care about this one,
Mm-hmm. Don't get caught up in other people's projections. That's all it is, projections. Just like I was telling the mother of my child yesterday, these people that come to you with their views on life and their limitations, and you can't do this and you'll never be that. You got to understand, y'all, like, they're speaking about themselves. They're not talking about you. If you show somebody your music or your art and they say, well, you'll never be this, or you can't do that, you take that personally and then you get sad. Well, the truth of the matter is, they're not talking to you. They're speaking from their own limitations. They're projecting onto you their own perspective. So when somebody gives you that shit, you do not have to accept it. There's a story about the Buddha where, this guy was coming up to him saying negative stuff, and the Buddha saw it as a gift, and he said, I appreciate the offer, but I do not accept this gift. You can do the same thing. You don't have to accept any of that nonsense. Know thyself. You don't define yourself by what other people say you are. You have to get your own experience.
Okay, so with that all set in mind, join us in the membership if you're interested in utilizing tarot in the most beneficial way, in the actual way that it's supposed to be used, into learning more about the cards, what they mean, what they represent, and how they can be used effectively. Also, if you are in the membership, do please check out the exercises for expanding your psychic ability. I know it's not as fun as necessarily reading about all the other spooky stuff, but it's necessary in beginning to expand your awareness and to utilize your power.
Yes, absolutely. And if you're interested in saving a little bit of time and jumping straight to the training, inquire about my classes where I'll teach you one-on-one about how to start developing the psychic ability, or how to develop your Merkaba, your energy system. We've got a class on that. Or how to work with spirits of any type safely without repercussion. We've got a class on that. And we've got hundreds of reviews, people that have taken the class and have had successful results. Simply inquire in the comments or my DMs and we'll get you situated. But in any case, live your life. You define what happens next. Take responsibility. It's not as scary as it sounds. It really isn't. When you pull out your tarot deck and you look at card number 1, which is the Magus, see yourself and understand that you have all the pieces and all the tools to create what you want. And if you need a little bit of help, we, Apollo Soul and I, are happy to help you do that. And we also mentioned that we've got this shadow work course, and there are new additions coming to this shadow work course here within the next couple of weeks that will complete this journey of self-introspection, dealing with the inner child and the trauma, and healing this thing. So if you are a member of that class, stay tuned for the next installment. And if you have not taken the shadow work class, be sure to check that out. Like I said, inquire in the chat or the comments, and we'll send you the link.
Thank you for your patience, your feedback, taking your time to work with us, study with us, learn with us, to listen to these podcast episodes. Again, we're doing this for you guys, and it's very encouraging to see all the positive comments, the views. We do see everything, so a big thank you for that, and we hope that you stick around for the remainder of this lifelong journey of achieving our limitless potential. If you want to see more from us, you can find us on socials. I am on __soul on Instagram.
And you can find me at LVX777. Or just search Travis Magus. So this has been another wonderful, exciting, uplifting, and enlightening episode of the Limitless Mind Podcast. We hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening. Peace.